Is this your first class on economics? Okay. In that case, we'll be having some introductory discussions also before we begin with the syllabus coverage. Okay. So let me introduce myself first. I am Shyam Sundar and I will take around 13 or 14 lectures with you on the economics part. And soon you will also be having other faculty members joining in, and that is how we go on. So the topics are distributed among us. We all will give you the list of topics and obviously accordingly the relevance for this exam and so on and so forth. This is the basic idea which we start today. So first of all, the subject which we are doing is economics, but you should clearly understand that our focus will be on Indian economy. Okay, as in economics of a country, which we are talking about, which is the economics of our own country, the Indian economy. When I say with focus, what I mean is that sometimes we'll also discuss things outside Indian economy, but generally somewhere connected with India still. So examples will keep on taking up as we go further. Let's start with a basic intro I wanted to have, because I'll talk about some books, etc. to read later on. We are going to have first a basic introduction to the subject. Economics has two main branches, which we call micro and macroeconomics. Okay, and whoever has some background in the subject would know that very well, that we have microeconomics as one branch and macroeconomics as the other. Although in this exam you are mainly supposed to do the second one, the macroeconomics. Today I will take one brief overview of microeconomics also with you. Okay, because somewhere or the other, even basic microeconomic concepts are helpful in this exam and in understanding the subject in general. Direct questions on microeconomics are rare in this exam. So I will not advise you to read much on that. Whatever you have to read, you will have to do mainly on macroeconomics. Okay. Basically, only those people who take economics as their optional subject need to do microeconomics in greater detail. So just to inform you that I also take optional classes in economics, and for that, if you have any query, etc., we will not take it here. That we will talk about after the class. If you have some questions, you can meet me. Okay, but in GS part, microeconomics is relatively less important. Still, we are going to do something on both to begin with. Let's start with the meaning of microeconomics. Micro means small, that all of you know. So what exactly is the relevance of the word small here? Small as in, it is the study of economic behavior. Microeconomics is the study of economic behavior from individual perspective. The word small was referring to individual. So whenever we look at any economic decision making behavior, etc., from the viewpoint of some individual, we call it microeconomics. However, be careful, individual may not only mean individual person. It may be a company, etc. also. So basically by individual here we mean individual consumers and producers. Economics is basically the study of production, consumption to start with. There are many more things obviously, like we'll do that later in the class. There is role of government and financial sector, etc. that will come to. But fundamental economics is about production and consumption of the goods and services. Consumers are those who buy goods and services, and producers are those who sell it. So basically producers are producing and selling the goods and services. Although there is a minor difference, and there can be actually a difference between that. When I say producers in the basic discussion, I'll mean those who are producing and selling. Generally it may be different, I completely understand. Someone who is producing may not himself be selling the product. Mainly it is about who is selling it, but in the basic discussion we'll not go into that detail. We'll just assume they are producing and selling the goods and services. Consumers are buying and using it for consumption. What are goods and services? Let's start with that, because in economics the term is very common, goods and services. Goods mean something which is physically visible and you can kind of experience it, feel it, etc. Okay, so for example, the notebook on which you are writing your notes right now is a good. The pen with which you are writing that is a good. Okay, something which is physically visible, tangible, okay, that is what we call good. Services means what? Services means something which we are consuming, but we cannot tangibly put it. They are intangible. So services are basically intangible. Although you are consuming this also, you are buying the services also. For example, you may have taken a metro train to come to this class. Okay, you have consumed transportation services, or whatever way that you came, you may have consumed some transportation services. Or when you made a phone call back your home that okay, I reached the class, you have used communication services. Okay, and obviously right now you are consuming say education services. So services are also very important, rather more important nowadays if you talk about value terms in Indian economy, but you cannot see them. They are intangible, goods are tangible. So consumers are buying goods and services, producers are selling. The minimum microeconomics that everyone needs to know, okay, even in GSS, some behaviors of consumers and that of producers, because they are like building blocks of economics. Anywhere you will see that kind of basic concept coming in. So related to consumer, that concept is called demand. Let's start with the concept of demand. Okay, demand refers to relationship between demand in economics refers to relationship between quantity demanded of a good or service. G or S when I write, generally I'll mean goods or services, and its price. The relationship between quantity demanded of any good or service and its price is what we call demand. And what exactly we mean by quantity demanded then? Quantity demanded just means different quantities of a good or service that a consumer is willing to buy at different prices. Okay, don't worry, I'll take an example. So when we say quantity demanded, I mean it's like a table. When you are thinking of a mathematical table or something, you can think of the different prices and at different prices how much of quantity that a typical consumer is willing to buy. So suppose that you go to market to buy something, some fruit, say mangoes, okay, and even if you are very fond of consuming mangoes, definitely the quantity that you will be willing to buy will depend on your price. Okay, unless you are too wealthy, that's another matter. Even then it matters, by the way. But in general, if you go to the market, so suppose that mangoes are too expensive, being sold at 500 rupees a kg. So what will happen? Then your quantity that you are willing to buy will generally be less. Okay, you will say, okay, I'll buy just one of it and come back home. Okay. Suppose it is cheaper, say 400 rupees a kg. You will go ahead and be willing to buy slightly more, say 2 of it. And accordingly, as the price keeps on decreasing, the quantity that you are willing to buy keeps on increasing. In fact, we have already done through this example important result related to demand. I'll write that down. But before that, quantity demanded means just what different quantities that consumer is willing to buy. The word willing is important because we may end up buying something unique, but here we are having a possibility list. It's like telling if price is 500 rupees a kg, then I will be buying this. If it is 400, then this. If 300, then this. This list of possibility is willing to buy, and this is your demand for, say, mangoes in this example. Okay. The example which I already gave you has told you about a result related to demand, which is called law of demand. Law of demand just tells that the quantity demanded of a good or service is inversely related to its price. Quantity demanded of a good or service is inversely related to its price. Put a comma and write, keeping other factors constant or unchanged. I'm sure anyone who had a basic background in economics would know all this, but still possibly they will also learn a few minor things. So there are two things which we are discussing here. The quantity demanded and the price of any good or service is inversely related. Inversely means they go in different direction. Didn't we do it in the example already? When price of mangoes was relatively high, you bought less. You were willing to buy less. And as the price came down, you were willing to buy more. Inversely related. But then here we are assuming all other factors. Other factors means any factor which is impacting quantity demanded other than price. So let's understand this again. I repeat. Other factors here mean any factor impacting quantity demanded other than price. Okay, don't worry. Let's take one example to understand. A simpler example can be your income. Okay, income that you have, or say pocket money that you have at this point of time, can be another factor which is determining it. So don't you think that today if you go to market and your pocket money has ended, okay, then and tomorrow when you get, say, some money transferred from your parents in the bank account, then the quantity demanded will change. So today with more income, you will enter the shop more confidently to buy more mangoes. That doesn't mean law of demand has failed. Okay, with pocket money coming in, even at 500 rupees a kg, you'll say, I don't care, I'll buy a kg. Okay, that doesn't mean law of demand has failed, but other factor has changed. So that is why this statement is important. When we say quantity demanded and price are inversely related, we assume other factors are same, constant. Actually, this is how most of the fundamental economics results are kept. In economics, we are analyzing behavior of human being in certain ways. and human beings are having multiple choices at any point of time. We cannot study it simultaneously. So what we do, we keep a few things constant and just analyze two things at a time. This is what makes economics very similar to a physical science, say physics, etc., wherein we are looking into the behavior of materials, where here we are looking into behavior of the mankind in making the decisions. So clearly, a human being is more unpredictable than materials. We have to assume a few things. That other things remaining constant, what is the link between the two? Okay, questions I'll take, wait for some time. Similarly, for producers, we have a term called supply. Demand is the consumer side of story in economics. Supply is the producer side. Supply refers to relationship between quantity supplied of a good or service and its price. Definition seems in a very similar pattern. The only difference that has come up is instead of quantity demanded, now we are talking about quantity supplied. And what exactly is this? Quantity supplied means the quantities of the good or service that a producer, we are now talking about producer or seller in general, you can also say, that a producer is willing to sell at different prices. So just like we did in quantity demanded, we are doing quantity supplied. Did you notice? Just two words change here. Instead of consumer, now we are writing producer. Instead of buy, we are now writing sell. Okay, so between quantity demanded and supplied, the difference is between these two words, which I encircled. But it's not just two words, it's a whole different perspective. Okay, producers often react exactly opposite to consumer. Okay, generally the reaction of producer will be exactly opposite. So this changes entire story. Okay, don't think these are just two words, but still, let's take example. Don't you think that the shopkeeper from where you are buying mangoes is thinking opposite the way that you? Okay, in the sense that if there is a higher price being offered to him, okay, then he would be willing to produce and sell more because his profits will be higher. It's as simple. As a producer, why shouldn't I like to sell my product at a higher price? Because that will increase my profit. Remember, willing is again important. What am I willing to sell is not necessarily what I actually sell. Because I cannot decide unilaterally that, okay, I'll sell my product at this price. Okay, if normally the mango prices are 200 rupees a kg and one seller says, no, I'll sell at 500. So consumers will say, be it, okay, you keep your product, okay, that will not be much successful. That is why they will not arbitrarily sell it at any price. Supply is just telling that given that there are different prices, what will be the producer willing to produce and sell. This is given by the result called law of supply. So law of supply tells us that quantity supplied of a good or service is directly related or positively related. Both will be fine. The quantity supplied of a good or service is directly or positively related to its price. Again, keeping other factors constant. The similar logic will apply here also. Keeping other factors constant. And here other factors will mean any factor other than price which can impact quantity supplied. So quantity supplied may be impacted by many other factors also. Let's take one example. It can depend upon, for example, on input prices. There are many more. I know you have many examples in mind. It can be technology, input prices, as some of the common examples. Okay, so suppose that the very basis of the production is costlier in input. Let's say seeds are costlier, fertilizers are costlier. Don't you think when seeds or fertilizers are costlier, the seller of the mangoes will be telling that my own cost of production has gone up. So even if you offer me higher price, I will more or less supply you the same quantity. When the production cost has gone up through higher input prices, then even if price is higher, the willingness to sell will be relatively same. That means other factor has changed. So again, just like law of demand, here we assume other factors being constant, how the quantity supplied and price are interrelated. This is about law of demand and supply. Let's go further into it. In a way, law of demand and supply is not realistic. Why? Because we are thinking of consumer as isolated entity, producer isolated. It's like we close consumer and producer in two separate rooms, and then we say, how do you behave? That is how we have done. That is not reality. The reality is that consumers and producers interact. Okay, and that interaction is given by the concept of market in economics. You can call it market, you can call it market mechanism, and many other names time to time we'll use for it. So what exactly is the meaning of market or market mechanism? It's a mechanism as in a framework or something like that, you can say. It's a mechanism under which the market forces of demand and supply, the market forces of demand and supply interact with each other to determine market price of the good or service. Actually, there are more things about market, but for you this is enough. This is more than enough. So 2-3 things. Market means there are market forces. Demand and supply are also called market forces. There where market forces are interacting with each other. Interacting means what? Say you going to buy mangoes and many thousands of consumers like you interacting with hundreds of mango sellers. Okay, when you commonly interact, then there is a result which is market price. This price is unique. Remember earlier in demand supply I said willing to buy, willing to sell. Where do we get exact price of the product? The actual, when they interact with each other to come to a market price. So normally when we go to market, we just buy something at market price. Okay, generally there is some MRP which is written, we buy it, but we forget that the price which is written there itself is an interaction between thousands of consumers, maybe tens of thousands of consumers and many producers also. So what are examples of market? Actually many. Simplest example can be your vegetable or fruit market. Okay, when you go to a physical location where vegetable or fruits are being sold, that is the simplest example of market. That is also market. So don't worry, what you called market is actually in economics also the same. Okay, it's not that way. But the only thing is economics widens it at a very broader basis. It's not just fruit or vegetable which we call market. There are at least two more examples, or there are actually many more examples, but I'll give you two more. One can be nowadays, more than physical, the digital markets are better examples. Okay, now we are living in an era where there are many things which are bought online, as you are well aware. That is also a market. So when you order something from, say, Amazon or Big Basket, you are entering some market again, where just like you, tens of thousands of consumers are willing to buy some good or service, and thousands of producers are willing to sell. The interaction between you is determining the market price. And a very interesting example, market is not necessarily about persons only like you, me. Sometimes it can be seen at a global level. For example, you can think about one case of crude oil market. The market for crude oil can be seen as entire globe. If we talk about crude oil market, we are thinking of entire globe. Why? Because there are some countries which are demanding it. Say India is on the demand side. Most of the countries are demanding it. We are willing to buy the crude oil. That is a very important input. And there are fewer countries who are on the supply side. Say the Gulf countries, Russia, or some other countries, Central Asian countries, etc. They are willing to sell. And it is interaction between them which determine prices. Although I know that crude oil market is not the best example of market in the sense that we do, because normally when we say market, we mean there should be equal bargaining power between consumer producer, which may not be there here. That's another issue. But still, what I was trying to tell you, market can be as simple as a few yards when you go to buy some fruit or vegetable. It can be as big as entire world. Okay, the market can be as small or as big. That is how the market word is important. Okay, now you may be thinking these things are they needed for exam actually. Sometimes yes, it is needed. For example, a question in mains paper 3 that was asked a couple of years ago was on market economy. Okay, so market economy will mean, if I talk about a term, market economy, the market economy will mean economy where all sectors, I'll explain the sectors etc. as we go into that, you are not yet aware of it. All the sectors can be something like agriculture, industries, we have not yet done these things, etc. Follow market mechanism. So every production, whether it is in agriculture or in industries or in services, they follow market mechanism. That is the economy which we call market economy. So fine, we'll do more on this later. Okay, I just wanted to inform you that don't underestimate it in the sense that we are just doing any discussion. Questions have come on it. And forget about, even if questions don't come directly, the word market is very important in economics, because most of the sectors in our country, particularly industries, financial sector, I will do a topic on money banking with you. They are very much market determined kind of a sector. So when we do the other topics, we'll not talk about demand and supply of mangoes, etc. But we may do demand and supply of money, demand and supply of dollars in India. So demand supply is like the backbone of economics. Without that, you cannot study economics, no matter for which exam you are preparing or something like that. That's why this is the first thing that I'm doing with you. Even if this is not to be done in more detail than the class notes, etc. Just one more thing on microeconomics, and that is about the change in the demand, supply, etc. So let's talk about two things. If there is increase in demand for a good or service. I'll explain you the meaning of it also. If there is increase in demand of a good or service and suppose supply is same or similar, both way you can say, same supply and the demand has increased, what will happen to market price? That will also increase. So first we knew what is market price and now we are talking about how can it change. It will lead to higher market price of the good or service, and then you can write vice versa. Vice versa meaning thereby if there is a decrease in demand for that good or service with same supply, market price will be lower. But be careful, this is where a little confusion is likely. When I said increase in demand, what exactly I meant? Be careful, it is demand, not quantity demanded. Although they are linked, but not same. Increase in demand means, increase in demand here means increase in quantity demanded at all prices. And when will there be increase in quantity demanded at all prices? When other factors change. Remember, when we stated law of demand and supply, we assumed other factors are constant. But when other factors change, then at any price or at all prices, the quantity demanded can change. I gave you example, I'll repeat that. Didn't I tell you that when your pocket money has increased, when you just got some money in your bank account, other factors have changed, then no matter what is the price of a product in the market, at all price levels compared to earlier, now you will start willing to buy more. With more income in your pocket, no matter what is the price of a product, you will be willing to buy more. This concept is called increase in demand. So increase in demand means quantity demanded is going up at all prices. And then if it is along with same supply, we say that market price will go up. In economic theory, like in optional etc., we do it graphically, but here not needed. I will try not to use graph as far as possible, that's not needed in GS. But economics otherwise a very graphically oriented subject. We'll talk about that in the references part etc. So this is one result that you should keep in mind. Let's take an example. In fact, let's take example and then we go to the second one. Suppose that a festival has come in, okay, due to which suddenly the fruits are being demanded more, no matter what is the price. So you know that during festivals, the fruits are being bought by more people are willing to buy it. What has happened? Other factor, here festival is a other factor. With other factor changing, a festival coming, suddenly the persons are willing to buy more and more of fruits, no matter what is the price. We don't care. Then don't you think the market price also goes up? What happened in this case? The supply didn't change. Remember, in agriculture related concepts, supply don't change immediately. Because by nature, agricultural products take time to produce. Okay, it's not that you can bring mangoes suddenly through some factory and sell it in the market. Okay, whatever mangoes have been produced in the season, you cannot increase it simultaneously. So if same supply or similar supply is there, and for some reason the quantity demanded is increasing at all price, then the market price will go up. And you can think of many other examples also over here. When there is economic development happening in a country at a greater scale, it needs more raw materials like crude oil etc. So when many countries are developing, the crude oil demand will be increasing. The overall price likely to go up. You can think of multiple examples over here. And then we have one more relationship from the side of supply. This is about demand, the other side is supply. If I talk about what if there is increase in supply of a good or service with same demand or similar demand, the price will decrease, fall, correct. This will result in lower market prices or fall in market prices. Increase in supply leads to lower market price of the good or service, and again you can say vice versa. If supply is decreasing with same or similar demand, then the market price will go up, it will be higher. Again, many real life example you can come across. Haven't you seen that during the main season, many agricultural products prices fall? Okay, many vegetables prices actually crash. Okay, like potato prices crashing is a common phenomenon in many states where potato production is significant. What has happened? Suddenly, due to the higher supply of potatoes with more or less similar demand, okay, the potato prices have fallen in market. Very common in agriculture particularly. And vice versa. Suppose that there is a monsoon failure, and due to which this time the agricultural production is not enough being produced. Whatever vegetables or fruits etc. or grains etc. Due to monsoon failure, the production itself is hit. Then what will happen? The market price will go up. You'll see these things in newspapers every now and then. Okay, that is one of the reasons in newspapers it is said, we are happy that this is a good monsoon year. Okay, what is the main reason? Good monsoon means supply is going to be good. We can expect that the overall market price of food grains, other things will remain lower. That is considered as an ideal factor for the economy. You may have noticed, and we are done with this section over here on microeconomics, you may have noticed that I took many examples from agriculture, most of them. That was for two purposes. One, to keep it simpler because you can relate it more to your daily life. Second, agriculture is a very important topic for this exam, okay, which is covered mainly in your geography classes. Although agriculture has nothing like it is only linked to geography or economics or science technology, it's one of the multidimensional issue or topic in itself. But whenever you read agriculture in geography classes, a little idea of demand and supply will make your understanding better. According to me, you cannot understand Indian agriculture without an idea about demand and supply. So there are many other subjects also where this basic microeconomics will help you. Mainly I was thinking of geography and obviously in economics at different places. This is the only microeconomics that I had to do with you, not more than that. Let's have quick intro to macro and then I'll take your questions also. The other branch is macroeconomics. One was micro, the other is macroeconomics. Micro meant small, macro means large, the opposite. The word macro is just antonym of micro. So micro was small, macro is large. What exactly is the definition? Macroeconomics is the study of economic aggregates. Macroeconomics is the study of economic aggregates and their behavior. Okay, let's understand this through example also. The word large or macro is referring to aggregate, a simple English word which you all should know. Aggregate simply mean when we are adding up something, summing up. Okay, aggregate literally means that we are adding, summing up. Okay, so whenever in economics we are kind of summing up something, that means we are in macroeconomic framework. For example, national income. which is also going to be our first topic that will begin later in this class. National income, although I define national income formally to you, but as a layman, if I ask you what is national income, you can say that it is the total income generated in the economy, or more or less same as total production value generated in the economy. I know you will say, how can income and production value same? We'll do all that. Okay, that is the detail of the topic which we'll do. But national income, broadly speaking, is nothing but the total production value in the economy or total income generated. The moment total comes, we are talking about aggregate, we are talking of macroeconomics. Similarly, okay, within national income we'll do many types, by the way, like GDP, GNP, etc. These all discussions are due. Don't worry, I will do all this in detail. What is GDP, GNP, how they are different. These things are more for coming classes. One more example I wanted to take here. Another example of economic aggregate can be aggregate prices. Although we generally don't talk about it by the name aggregate prices, but actually they are aggregate prices only. Can anyone guess example here? Something like CPI, Consumer Price Index, WPI, Wholesale Price Index, etc. Okay, I will not be doing this part with you, but some other faculty member will do. Okay, whenever we use a term price index, PI is price index. Price index means we are aggregating some prices. It's technical. You will never be asked how do we aggregate. That's beyond the scope of GS, etc. But I can give you a layman kind of explanation. Price index or aggregate prices would mean that I take price of different goods and services. Say some food grains price, some industrial goods price, some services price, and then I put it together in the form of one number. So if I can somehow aggregate food grain, industrial goods, services prices together and put it in a number, I can get a price index like Consumer Price Index, Wholesale Price Index, etc. Since it is again aggregating, hence macroeconomics. So macroeconomics has many more examples which I am not giving here. Why? Because almost all the things, at least 75-80% of discussion that I will have or other teachers will have will be of macroeconomics only. So you will have many more examples when you do the remaining classes like taxation, capital markets, etc. There are many more aspects of it. One more thing, what is the meaning of behavior here and why is it important? Macroeconomics just doesn't talk about the aggregate, but also how do they behave. Behave as in, are they going up? Are they coming down? If they are going up, at which rate? If they are coming down, at which rate? Are you following? So one common example here can be national income growth. National income is an aggregate, but national income growth is about its behavior. The most common example in India given for national income growth is GDP growth. When you read newspapers, you will see a number of times news related to the proposed GDP growth or actual GDP growth. So when we say GDP growth or in general national income growth, what we are discussing, that at which rate my national income is going up. So when some newspaper article tells that Indian GDP growth is 7%, broadly you can understand it as, if last year we were producing goods and services worth 100 rupees, this year it is 107 rupees worth. Okay, it's like for every 100 rupees of production value, we have added 7 rupees extra, then we will say it is 7% per annum growth. In fact, we are interested more in behavior in our common discussion rather than aggregate. You will generally not see in newspaper, this is GDP of India. So although that is also sometimes coming, but mostly we talk in terms of the growth. Similarly, the behavior of aggregate price is given a name what we call inflation. Okay, inflation is a very common term used in economics. I thought I'll take an example on that. Inflation is nothing but, inflation is defined as the increase in some aggregate prices. Whenever any type of aggregate price indicators increases, we call it inflation. That is why in newspapers you will come across CPI inflation in India is this. Suppose in newspaper you see an article that CPI inflation of India is say 6%. What does it mean? It means within consumer price index, whatever goods and services are there, if it costed me 100 rupees last year, now I have to pay 106. If a bundle of goods and services costed me 100 rupees last year and today it is costing me 106, this is a way of telling that inflation has been 6%. Obviously, inflation is a topic in itself which some other faculty member will do with you. I will not do inflation with you, but I thought of talking about it because inflation is so basic in economics discussion, we can't skip it. Okay, somewhere or the other the term comes in. So I thought I'll give you a formal meaning. Whenever prices are rising, the rate at which it is rising, we call it inflation. Obviously related to that we have terms like deflation, disinflation, that all will be done. Don't worry about it. This is not a topic yet that we are doing on inflation. This is where I stop in my basic intro. I'm done with the basic intro part. Any general doubt? I know you may be thinking that we are doing too many things in the very first section, but don't worry, it will keep on getting repeated. Many microeconomic concepts and macroeconomic will keep on getting repeated. And if you are thinking what you should read, etc., that I'm coming to. Okay, we'll discuss that also. Any general doubts so far? I'm waiting for online first, except the comments that I have seen. Any other doubt that you have at this point? Okay, one more thing. I'm coming to all that. I'm coming to the readings, how to read, etc. Wait for some time. But before that, I remember one thing. Those who don't have any background in economics, I can understand initially it feels a little difficult. Okay, and most of you don't have background, that I very well know. And that is why whenever you have a class, actually that applies for other subject also, you should revise it properly. Revise it, think about it. Particularly in my classes, it will be absolutely important that whenever you come for the next class, you should have revised your earlier notes very well. At least when we are going through the same topic, because things will be often repeated. Okay, and then I won't be able to tell you what I did earlier. That is up to you. How to interpret individual behavior? Individual behavior, yes, it is a general English word where behavior can mean many things. But here when I said individual behavior, I meant the behavior of buying or selling goods and services. Economics is a branch of study. Economy is about learning economics of a country. Generally a country, but it can be also a state or any geographical area. So if I'm talking about, say, even a particular district, I can talk about its economy. Getting the point? So economics of a particular area, it may be a state, a country, generally, even globe. We talk about global economy. All price in that context means, the word all prices here meant that no matter what is the price in the market, due to change in some other factor, my quantity demanded has gone up. Didn't I tell you, like a festival? When a festival comes, no matter what is the price, some people will go and buy the fruits in the market. You can think of many more examples like that. Okay, any doubt from offline students so far? Yes.
What was the other factor for that example for the kind of price crash?
Okay. Other factor there was, say, a very good monsoon year? It can be more factors, maybe a better variety of potato available in the market which is more productive. In the same land area, more potatoes have been produced because of better technology or a better monsoon. Okay, any such factor can be taken as an example. Yes. Okay, that we'll discuss. Not right now. Generally, yes. Increase in GDP more often than not leads to inflation. There are exceptional cases which we'll discuss separately. Okay. Whatever I know that I'll do in the class, I will not answer immediately because there is no point repeating the things, etc. So that is very well our discussion, but not now, maybe slightly later. Anything else so far from what we have done? Okay, so how to get to know certain words conveying different meanings in economics? Well, I don't feel you should be much scared about the words, etc. As the classes will go on and you keep on reading newspapers, etc., you will start realizing which word can be interpreted as what in economics. Otherwise, anyone can go for more detailed reading, but that much is not required. Don't forget, it is just one subject that you are doing in this exam. There are many more that you have to focus upon also. Employment is often taken as a macroeconomic variable. Okay, although in every part there may be some micro and some macro aspect coming in. Okay, a good when you become a more mature student of economics, you will realize that actually micro and macro are not segregated. Okay, micro is impacting macro, macro is impacting micro. But it is too early to talk about it. Okay, beyond a point, they are actually interrelated. So it's okay. I can take doubt, no worries about it. The point is that you should understand what we are doing. Okay, let's do. Actually, I thought that I'll give you introduction and then we'll talk about something like what to read. Exactly, I can see some of the questions over there. So in economics, whatever we are doing, the micro will be very less actually, macro mainly. What kind of references that you can follow? Let's talk about that. There are a couple of NCERT books that you can begin as introductory reading. Mainly this one, the standard 11th NCERT. The standard 11th NCERT book on economics, which is by the name of Indian Economic Development. I'm sure many of you will have a copy of it. The Indian Economic Development, which is the NCERT book on Indian economy. This is like a background reading. Direct questions may not come from this book at any point in your exam, yet this is like a background reading. Those who have never done economics so far, they should go through it. Okay, some students also ask that should we read the earlier NCERT books of 10th or 9th, etc. If this book is reasonably clear, you can ignore that. I think in wording, etc., this is easier. If you find it difficult, then you can even refer to the standard 10th or 9th books. But do it with a view that you are just doing it as a background reading. When I say background reading, my emphasis is on you should read it quickly. Okay, you shouldn't sit with that book for months. Okay, you should read it as soon as possible. Even if needed, you can go back and read a few chapters again. No problem on that. So I will not advise you to make notes of this NCERT book, frankly speaking, because that may be too much of time taking and that will not be directly helpful in your exam. Go through this with a view that you are understanding different aspects of the Indian economy. There is another NCERT book which you can go slowly. That is taught in standard 12th. Actually, in standard 12th, we have both micro and macroeconomics textbook. But as I told you earlier, micro is less important in this exam. So you can just go through introductory macroeconomics. There is a book by the name of Introductory Macroeconomics that you can go through. Okay. And two more things to clarify here. One is that it is advisable that you go through the older edition of macro. Actually, in macroeconomics, microeconomics, edition hardly matters because they are static part of economics. Okay. If you have gone through new edition, then also I have no problem. But older one is simpler in language, and that is the reason I generally prefer. Generally, I upload a copy, a PDF version of older edition on your portal. I'll tell the office soon to do that. You can, if you don't find it, you can keep that PDF with you and use it accordingly. We won't be able to provide printout, etc. of that. Okay, that would be violating the other copyrights, but the part you can take up to some extent and use it accordingly. One more thing, when you are doing this, you should be selective. You don't need to do everything cover to cover. Selective means here, one, those chapters which are related to topics. And we'll keep on telling you that. At least I will keep on telling you that in which topic that I do, there is one or the other chapter related to macroeconomics. Like, I'm going to start with national income soon. On national income, there is a chapter in macroeconomics. So clearly that means it is important for you. Second thing in selective means that you should avoid graphs, numericals, etc. Economics is a subject which is very closely attached to graphs, mathematics, etc. But in this exam, you need to avoid it. These graphs, numericals, etc. are needed only if you take economics as an optional. In GS, you will never be tested on that. That I can guarantee. Okay, never in your exam it will be asked to solve a numerical or draw a graph. So ignore it. But if graphs or numericals help you in understanding the things better, it's your freedom. Okay. But we will not be entertaining many doubts related to that because we know that it's not relevant for your exam. If you find it comfortable, it's up to you. Okay, you can go slowly on this book because this book, although is not very thick, is a little technical. So the ideal way is that whichever topic is being done in the class, side by side, if there is a chapter, you can go through that. That is the basic rule. Almost the same rule you can apply to the third reference also, which is the reference book on Indian economy given from institute. Rather, there will be books, as far as I know, there will be at least 2 books that you will be getting on Indian economy over a period of time. What students popularly call the yellow books. Okay, so there will be yellow books or reference books provided by the institute itself. You just need to wait for that to come to you, and clearly they also use the same logic. Read at least those parts which are being done in the class. If there is a direct link between the class and one of the chapter, do that there. Okay, I think for static part this will be enough. When I say static part, I mean those parts of economics which are like not changing any year, no matter when you are appearing for the exam. But I hope by now you are aware that this exam in almost every subject has a dynamic part also. Dynamic part is what we call the current affairs by other name. Okay, mainly the current affairs, which keeps on changing every year. So what you should be doing as far as economics is concerned, sometimes even in these books you will see current affairs related material. So no doubt that will be covered somewhere here also, but apart from that you will be getting some current affairs materials from the institute. Okay, the institute will provide you both online and offline materials, like in the form of booklets and in the form of the online current affair. That is the minimum that you should start with. But it is more ideal that you read at least one newspaper yourself. Okay, at least one newspaper you should be doing yourself for current affairs and other things also. There are 2-3 things which you need to do in newspapers, and I'm mainly thinking of economics, but in general also this will be helpful to you. Most important part will be editorials. And I'll explain soon why editorials are so important. Editorials are the articles which are typically in the middle of the everyday newspaper. Editorials can be connected with any subject. It can be polity, it can be economics, it can be say science and technology, defense, international affair, it can be anything. So the idea is that you should have your mains syllabus somewhere with you. Okay, as you know that there are 4 mains, GS mains papers which are there. Particularly the newspaper relevance will be for the first 3, maybe very rarely the 4th one also. What am I trying to say is that even if one by one those parts will be covered with you. Okay, the good thing about keeping syllabus with you is that time to time when you just have a look at the syllabus, that will give you an indication what you should focus more in the newspapers. So for example, if you are going through the economics syllabus in paper 3 mainly, you will see the topics like industry, infrastructure, agriculture, okay, government budgeting, things like that. Meaning thereby, whenever there is an editorial directly connected to that, it is undoubtedly important for you. And you should try reading it yourself. I know nowadays you have enough material available on simplifying the editorials. Okay, you can start with that, but ideally you should try to read it on your own in a few months at least. Okay, if not immediately, in a few months you should be able to read it on yourself. Second thing is in newspaper, which is quite important, is some simpler explanation related articles. This has become very common in almost every newspaper nowadays. The most common newspapers are either the Indian Express or the Hindu. Okay, these are the 2 common newspapers which students do for this exam. And if you are thinking which one should you go for, again there is no one answer to that. I think as a beginner to newspaper reading, Indian Express is a better one, simpler in language. But the Hindu is also an excellent newspaper, and at a later point of time when you are going towards your mains examination, some editorials of Hindu can also be quite helpful. We'll talk about these things later. But no matter which newspaper it is, it has some simpler explanation article. Okay, you will see that in Indian Express almost every day, one page they devote on explaining some economic policy or something happening in polity, international polity, domestic. The best part of this is these articles are written from a beginner's perspective. They almost assume that someone who is reading it is new to this area. Hence, that makes a better understanding. So you'll find it more interesting than editorial. Okay, but you should also read editorial as the time progresses. So these 2 things are the most important parts. What is also important is to tell you what not to do in newspaper reading. Okay, so let's understand one more thing. There are 2 pages, 1 or 2 pages depending upon day to day, on economy and business given in everyday newspaper. So in everyday newspaper we see a couple of pages on economy and business in which you can ignore the business related articles. Okay, when I say ignore the business related articles, what kind of articles am I referring to? Something which is related to, say, how much profit a company is making. Okay, or how much share market has gone up or come down. Okay, I know sometimes a major part of page is devoted to these only. Okay, or what is happening in, say, board of director meeting in that company. That's not important for you. So gradually you should realize that these articles should be ignored. What is important is economy related article. Economy can be related to some big economic sector. As I was doing in macroeconomics, we'll be doing broader sectors like national income related, or sectors like agriculture, industries, okay, banking will come to. If there is a sector related article on economy, that is important. Otherwise, the business oriented ones are not important. Okay, one more thing you can do. Initially, when you read the current affairs material from the institute, that will give you hint on what you should do in newspaper and what you should not. So what I mean to say is, even if you don't do the third part, it's okay. Even if you don't do the third part of newspaper reading, it's not a big issue, because mostly it will be covered here. But that should be taken as a learning by you, that how you should be able to filter out the most important things. Still, these two things are important in newspaper reading. This ideally you should do yourself, and some of you may be thinking that should we make notes out of it or not. Well, my advice will be, don't make notes out of every editorial or every article. Okay, you have to be somewhat selective. Again, there are two hints that you can use. One, if there is such article directly related to the topics that we are doing, or they are in your syllabus of mains, okay, then it is somewhat worth note making. Otherwise, there may be certain articles or certain editorials which are too general that may not be needed even for this exam. Again, my advice will be, initially don't worry about notes making a lot. At least start reading. Okay, even if you make notes, you can make some running notes, etc. And then gradually you will yourself start realizing what is worth note making. Okay, that is a kind of a gradual lesson that you will be learning. But newspaper reading is absolutely important. You cannot clear this exam if you are not having a habit of newspaper reading. It's as simple as that. Okay, according to me, you cannot entirely depend on the secondary material on newspaper, because that is their work of doing it. Your work is not there. You have to also work over there and go through the readings, etc. So that is my viewpoint on that. Depending upon the different teachers, you can apply that. So this is about references part. Again, if you have some doubts, wait for some time. There are two more things I want to do before I begin with my first topic. One is, what kind of strategy that you should follow while doing economics. By strategy, I mean, how should you study? So far we are doing what you should study. How should you go about doing it? So there are 2-3 important things which are needed in strategy. One is conceptual understanding. Economics is a very conceptual subject, okay, and that you may have already got a reflection in my first section. Okay, micro, macro, when I was giving you even the introduction, you must have noticed that there are multiple concepts involved, like law of demand is a concept, law of supply is a concept, knowing what is inflation is a concept. Okay, this is the building block of economics. And many more examples will keep on coming as the topics will go on. In fact, almost every teacher, when they take their first 2 topics or so, first couple of topics, they are more conceptual in nature. We also know that concepts take time for you to understand. So initially we devote more time to conceptual topics. Like from my side, national income, money, banking, etc. They are more conceptual topics. Then comes some of the factual details. By factual details, although technically speaking factual details can be both in terms of data or numbers, on economic indicators, like data on GDP or inflation, or it can be just the details in words. Okay, so let's take example of both. As I told you, data, number, etc. can be something like GDP growth, inflation rate. Sometimes question can come, but still I feel this you can largely ignore initially. Do not read newspaper with a viewpoint that you will leave the newspaper only when all the numbers are memorized by you. According to me, that's a bad way of newspaper reading. So if it is given GDP growth will be this or inflation will be this, okay, read it, but don't try to memorize it all the time. How much will you memorize? Every quarter they will have a GDP figure, inflation figure, current account deficit, fiscal deficit. Okay, your mind will be flooded with data. You will not be able to do some meaningful study. In exams, sometimes data-based questions come, but that is very rare. Okay, and as you progress, automatically some of the important data or numbers will stick to your mind. So my advice will be, don't bother about memorizing figures from newspapers, etc. Okay, worry more about the word-based details. Word-based details can be something like, say, features of a government scheme. I'm just giving you an example. In this exam, you will be doing a number of government schemes related to economics, related to other things also. So many a times you have to kind of look into the features of the government scheme. Just for example, as you all know, there is a scheme called Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. We'll do this at a later point of time when we do banking. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana basically is a scheme where people are encouraged to open more bank account, or we call it a scheme on financial inclusion. We have a detailed discussion on financial inclusion in banking. Here I am taking these examples only. There is a scheme on financial inclusion by the government of India, which is called Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. So when I say word-based detail, I mean you should know, okay, these are 5 important features of Jan Dhan Yojana. If someone asks you, okay, tell what are the 5 important features, you should know, okay, this. Okay, that is not where you have to quote data. You have to just remember in words. There are many other examples of details in words, policy details, etc. Or a number of other things keeps on coming in newspapers which are just details in words. So keep in mind that these word details are more important for you when you read newspapers. The data, etc. can be largely ignored. Okay. If you are good enough on these 2 things, basically if your conceptual understanding, factual details both are good enough, then it means that you can handle the prelims questions related to economics. So in prelims, as you very well know, there are 100 questions in all, okay, that you are asked in the GS paper. Out of 100, approximately around 20 are from economics. Economics has roughly 20% weightage in the prelims exam. Between 17 to 22, strictly speaking, it can be plus minus 2, 3, obviously. These questions are either conceptual, so either they test your conceptual understanding there, okay, examples will follow when we take up the topic, or factual details, mainly the word based. Sometimes the question may have both of it. You may get a question where they will say, okay, consider the 3 statements, out of which maybe 1 is conceptual, 2 are details. And then you have to find out which is correct, which is not, or how many of them are correct. Okay, I am not doing a PYQ right now, just to clarify. We'll do that also. When the concerned topic comes, we'll do that also. All am I telling is that initially you should focus on these 2 things. Conceptual understanding, where class notes will be very helpful to you. That's why initially we do more of conceptual topics. and side by side your macro NCERT, to some extent yellow book will also help you. If you are doing newspaper, simpler articles, that will also help you. That those simpler articles in newspapers are also many a times helping in conceptual understanding. So feel free to look into these 2-3 things and you'll be getting the better idea. Factual details are mostly current affairs detail, newspaper details. Again, we'll do them in the class also, but factual details are actually so huge that doing everything in the class is nearly impossible. That's where your own hard work, how much you have read the current affairs material or newspapers will be helping you out. What else will be needed? Okay, what about the mains examination that we talk about in economics? For mains examination, you need one more thing, that is called viewpoints. Certain viewpoints related questions also come. So before I give you example of viewpoint, just to tell you few things about mains questions in economics. Mains questions in economics can either be based on factual details. Sometimes the questions are just expecting you to write down something in detail. Like we have seen a question earlier in mains exam on what are the features of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. As simple as that. Okay, what are the features of say PMJDY? Such a question has come. But sometimes the question may be viewpoint based. Let's take an example. Continuing with the same example, the Jan Dhan Yojana. Suppose I ask you that, do you think that PMJDY has led to financial inclusion? This is an example, and then I say comment. Okay, then I write down later, comment on it. This is a typical mains question kind of a thing. Okay, so in mains question, you may get a question like this also, where they throw the ball in your court. Okay, they will expect you to write upon that. Like, do you think, or to what extent do you think? Sometimes the questions can be also like this, that Jan Dhan Yojana has failed in achieving financial inclusion. Elaborate. So what examples are we having here is where you have to write down in detail either what do you think about that particular area or whatever the examiner is expecting you to write upon. Like in this question I gave you freedom. Do you think? So here you can approach it in 3 main ways. You can say, yes, I think it has led to financial inclusion. Then you will elaborate, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are the arguments that I give, that why it is so. Or you say, no, I do not agree. Then again you can give 2, 3, 4 arguments, why do you think so? Or you can have a mix of both. You can start like, okay, it has led to, but then it has also been having limitation. We'll do this in the class, don't worry about it. Many of these things I'm talking about at some point we'll be doing it in the class. But what am I telling is that you should gradually be prepared for such a question also in the mains exam. Apart from class notes, the best way to do it is from the editorials. That is the reason why we give editorial reading so much of importance. Reading editorials is the best way to build up your viewpoints on various issues, various subjects, etc. And don't feel confused when in the same newspaper, on the same issue, on one day there is an article in support, on other there is an article against. Okay, you are not a politician that you have to take a stand and stick to that. Okay, you are going to be a bureaucrat, particularly right now preparing for an exam. So read both, don't get nervous or confused on that. So whenever something happens, say just electoral bonds. Okay, some people are telling they are bad, some are telling they are good. Okay, why worry about it? Why take a stand? Talk about both. Okay, write a few things in favor, a few things in against of it, or whatever. I'm talking about non-economics topics also. that will gradually help you in building those viewpoints over a period of time. So this will be time taking, but I told you in the first class, because this will be expected from you when you write the mains exam. Right now you can mainly focus on these two: conceptual understanding, factual details. One more thing, where are the, how many questions and where are they coming in the mains exam? Mains exam is in economics is mainly related to the GS paper 3. Most of the questions on economics come in GS paper 3, but sometimes in paper 2 also. In fact, in the last few years we are finding increasingly more questions being asked in paper 2 also, where idea of economics is needed, but mostly it will be paper 3 related. So approximately you can say 10 questions overall in mains exam are coming from economics. Approximately 10, again it can be plus minus 2 depending on year to year. So economics is one of those subjects which will help you in clearing this exam almost at any stage. Okay, starting with prelims where it has 1/5 weightage, in mains, okay, and generally in interview stage also some of the economy related questions are asked from the candidates. So it is considered as a desirable thing to have a basic idea of Indian economy even when you are going to the final stage of this particular exam. So I think this is enough on the reference, the strategy, okay, and any general doubts so far. I'll take that. No, don't read EPW etc. Not needed. EPW or Economic Political Weekly is slightly more detailed. Maybe if you are doing economics as an optional subject, you will need to do that, but not for GS. Any other doubt if there are? Law of supply may not be applicable to agriculture sector where quantity cannot be increased with the price after a certain point. No, even then it will be applicable, because law of supply is just telling about willing to sell. Don't forget. Law of supply is not telling actually what will be sold. Even in agriculture, what the producer is willing to sell will be applicable. Okay. Never. Graphs or illustration through numericals are never needed in GS. I made it clear in the beginning. So this is an exam where if you are taking, if you are just writing economics in GS, you should be good at remembering things, understanding concepts. But understanding concept means maybe you can take some examples to understand which is numerical based, but don't go too far in that. Which debates are you talking about? Don't debate the typical media debates, please. Okay, you will waste your time entirely. If you want to watch debates, look into the debates like on Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha channel. Okay. I know you will say, is there a channel like this also? Okay, fine. We are so much involved in our mainstream media, we don't know that. But there are actually meaningful debates happening on some channels. Rarely any people watch it. Even if you leave it, newspaper reading should be enough. Okay, that should not be a big issue. Just 1 second, I'm coming. Meaningful, I didn't get your, okay, willing, meaning of willing. Willing is a simple English word. It's like telling that at different prices, how much do I want to buy a product? It's like hypothetically, if I've been given 5 prices for a product, at each price, what will be I wanting to buy, how much of quantity? How to make notes from newspaper? Okay, possibly that will be also helped to you by your mentors, etc. That is one of the reasons why you get some side by side help also. But my advice will be, initially just follow how the current affair materials are being given by the institute and follow that footstep. Are you following that? So there are many videos or some online material provided on the newspaper articles. Try to follow not only those articles but also that how did they make notes from there. Okay, that should be giving you a kind of guidance on that. Since here I cannot go into detail on that, I will not make you exactly aware of it. No need to read other standard books, at least for the time being. If needed, I'll tell you in a particular topic. Okay, economic survey, etc. is needed, but at the very end, when you are done with the entire syllabus, etc., then your economic survey will come, but that is also to be done very selectively. So all those things will be informed to you when it comes in. There is no point that I tell right now, and then you will forget automatically by the time survey comes. Don't make notes of monthly magazine also. They are already in somewhat note form. Okay, so I will not advise that. Okay, yes, please. Okay, thank you. Any other questions so far? Huh.
While reading the news, there are many topics which are really, really hard to understand. So, and like it is important for the exam also. So
Try to read it. So what? Even if you understand 5% of some article, try to read it. And that is the basic idea, that as the classes will progress, you will slightly make better understanding of those articles, even if you earlier didn't. At least try to identify whether it is relevant or not through the link with the syllabus or the topics that I will be giving you also. That will start making it clear that whether it is relevant or not. Even if you realize it in the first few weeks, that is good achievement. And step by step, okay, things take time. The best part is that you are being given a regular online materials, etc. That is automatically filtered for you. Okay, so you are saving already a lot of effort in filtering out relevant articles when you do the online videos that are provided by institute, etc. So start with that and then gradually try to come to the newspaper reading yourself. We'll keep on talking time to time, no worries on that. So everything cannot be told hypothetically. When you read and face some problem, then only you will be understanding it. Okay. Anything else so far? Budget, economic survey, everything when they come will tell you. Okay, not right now. They are important, but they are important in a selective manner. Right now, forget about it. So just understand a basic rule. Right now, your focus should be that whatever is being done in the class, that should make sense to you. Okay, that should be understood by you. And you should start newspaper reading at least. No matter even if you understand lesser part of it. And side by side the current affairs material which are coming in. Do not try to connect everything from the first day. Okay, that is also a problem. Many students are, okay, I read newspaper, but in class something else was going on. Well, you can't expect the same thing going in class which is appearing in everyday newspaper. Because any subject is so vast that ensuring that we are coincidentally doing the same thing which is in newspaper is not going to happen. And don't worry about it. Read it separately. Okay. Gradually over a few months time period, you will start connecting things. That will also come, but not immediately. A few things are time taking. Okay, let's come back and talk about the list of topics that I am going to do. And also simultaneously I will begin my first topic here. So these are the topics that I will be doing it. And side by side I am also telling you very briefly that where in exam these topics are likely to be more important for you. My first topic is going to be on national income accounting. Okay, so when we start, we'll keep on learning what is national income or types of national income, etc. National income accounting is a topic where every year one or sometimes even two questions are coming in mains. Mostly in paper 3. Mostly when we see national income based question, it comes in paper 3. And whatever I am telling you in these cases, you should not just believe me blindly. Okay, apart from syllabus of the mains exam, you should have the previous year questions with you also. Even if that doesn't make any understanding to you now, forget about it. Keep copy of previous year question of every subject with you, at least for 2-3 years that should be with you, so that time to time you can go back and have a read of it. So yourself you will see that one question minimum, sometimes even two are coming around national income, although what type of questions come that I'll tell you later. What about prelims? This is not a very guaranteed part, but maybe 1 or 2 questions in prelims also can come from here. In prelims I cannot kind of guarantee, because there are years where they have not asked even a single question in from this topic. That is a more important topic from your mains exam. Then comes money and banking. Money and banking will be the longest topic that I'll take up with you. Okay. In fact, the relevance of this topic goes more into mains exam, prelims exam. Somewhere in the range of 4-5 questions in prelims are being regularly asked from money and banking. Try to understand how important is this statement. There are total 100 questions in your entire prelims GS paper. If one topic of one subject can give you guarantee of even 4 or 5 questions, that's a big thing, believe me. You will not see such a topic anywhere generally across the subjects, or very rarely, as much as important is money and banking. That is what historically we see. This topic is very important for other competitive exams also. By chance you are writing, other than UPSC, where economics is being asked, money banking is one of the most favorite area from where questions come. You can check yourself, your CDS paper, your state services paper, and you will be convinced on that. However, even in mains exam, sometimes one question they have asked. If they ask in mains exam, most commonly they ask on financial inclusion, the term that I was referring to, and we'll do it in detail later. Okay, coming to the third one, that will be on inequality and poverty. Topics like inequality, poverty, etc. are clearly more important for mains exam. Anywhere 3 to 4 questions in mains can come around it. The questions can be both in paper 2 or 3. Sometimes in paper 2, sometimes in paper 3, sometimes in both. The questions may come around inequality, poverty. But one quick clarification. When I said 3-4 questions, these questions may not be 100% from economics. Okay, they may be interdisciplinary questions also. And that is also one thing that you should realize, that by the time that you go for mains exam writing, your viewpoint should be more of interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary means the same topic looked at various disciplines viewpoint. Like inequality is as much as a topic in economics as much as it is in sociology. Okay, or social issues that you do. Okay, so when you do inequality, you must be aware of social as well as economic aspects. Similarly, poverty. Poverty has even more interdisciplinary approach. Not just economic and social. Poverty has its own link with governance, which is a polity related topic. We do a lot of discussion on poverty and governance when we do this topic. Okay, or maybe poverty and agriculture, a topic that you do more in geography. So there are many such things that you will realize over a period of time, that there is one topic but it may have multiple disciplines linked to it. Okay, questions in mains are very common on this type. For prelims again we can't predict, but if they are in some kind of unexpected questions kind of prelims, they can ask 1 or 2. Then we'll do some selected issues in agriculture. Why selected issues? Because agriculture by that time you must have done in geography classes in more detail. Okay, the geography classes take up agriculture in more detail with you. So then we'll do some of the selected issues, like my main focus will be on food security issue and something on land reforms also will be doing. These things are again more important for mains exam. In GS paper 3, we are finding regular questions on both food security, land reforms, etc. Okay, exact questions later on, but for your mains exam particularly they are important. And then the fifth and last one will be WTO. This is all from my topic list, the World Trade Organization or WTO. When we do WTO, we'll see what is the importance. It is too early to talk about it. Right now I can only say WTO is an international organization that manages international trade, okay, the export, import, etc. How WTO is interlinked with many other topics, let's leave it. It is not the correct time to tell you. Well, reason why I gave you this list is, at least it will give you some idea of understanding which editorial is important, which is less important, or which explanation article is more important, which is less, and so on and so forth. For example, whenever you see an article on agriculture, blindly you can say it is important for you. You don't need to do a double thing. Agriculture I consider as the most important area from where questions are being asked in this exam. And when I say that, I am not limiting it to economics. When I say agriculture, I mean geography, I mean economics, I mean social issues, I mean science and technology. Okay, to some extent governance, a mix of all this. So whenever in newspaper you get an editorial on Indian agriculture, don't think twice, it is important for you. Okay, this is how gradually you will realize that what articles are to be filtered for the correct ones. This is just an example. Okay, more examples will follow as we go on. So with this, I think we can begin with our first topic, which is on national income accounting. Okay, so far whatever we were doing earlier in the class was more of introduction. More formally we begin with the first topic here. Although before I define what is national income, I again need to do some platform building for you. Okay, it's like before reaching that national income concept, I'm just doing some basics. Just like I did demand supply as basics in microeconomics, you can call the discussion in this class, the remaining part of this class, something like basics in macroeconomics. Because national income is a topic in macro, I'm kind of creating some steps for you to reach the term like national income. Don't think much, just follow what we are doing. We have started with the first topic on national income accounting. And the first thing that we do here is, there are 4 important types of economic sectors that we'll discuss one by one, and also their roles in the economy, what exactly they are doing in a particular macroeconomy. We start with households. Okay, I know some of you may have thought that when I said economic sector, I will do agriculture, industry. That also I will do. Okay, but that is where we are only talking about producers. That is a second level classification. Okay, the first level is in overall economy. When you look at the overall economy, who are all in the economy? We divide them in 4 main types of sectors, starting with the households. Households are basically the groups of consumers buying similar goods and services. Remember, we did consumer in microeconomics. Okay, so when I talk about one consumer, I'm talking more in microeconomic context. the same consumers, when I group them, aggregate them, we are thinking in macroeconomic context. So what is a household in economics? It is some group of those consumers who are buying similar goods and services. It's very easy, believe me. As a layman, you can say the family with which you reside is a household. The word family and household are more or less same. Okay, strictly speaking, not the same, but more or less same. So the family where you are residing in, with your parents, with your brothers and sisters, etc., you form a group of consumers where you are buying similar or consuming similar goods and services. Like the food items we consume, okay, the furniture that we use, the movie that we watch in a family, aren't they similar? So that is what makes a family a typical example of a household. Okay, then comes firms. So we have done households, what are they and what are they doing? The role is to buy goods and services, although in a similar manner. More roles will come in our discussion later. The second sector are firms, which we generally call in our regular language companies. In our common discussion we call them companies, but generally in economic theory we use the term firms for them. Firms are basically the producers of different types of goods and services. In microeconomics, we were talking about one producer at a time or producers of a particular good at a time. So when I talked about mangoes, I talked only about mango producers. When I did microeconomics, in macro we are talking about different types of goods and services and all producers. So in a way you can also see macro is like extension of micro. Although there are many debates around it, those who have background in the subject would know that. But as a beginning, you can say that the different types of goods and services are being produced by different companies, etc. We can call them firm. So you can think of steel making firms, okay, car making firms, clothes making firms, fertilizer manufacturing firms. This is another big sector in the economy. So one is household, second is firms or companies, third is government. Or sometimes we also call general government. Both are same, government or general government. One thing which you should be very clear about is when I talk about government or general government, here I am including, say, center, states, union territories, etc., governments. We are talking about the governments at central level, the government of India or the state governments or union territories, etc., not government enterprises. Okay, for example, by government I don't mean, say I'm talking about NTPC or ONGC. Any guess why? Exactly, because that will be counted in the second category, the firms. Very good. Firms itself can have many categories like private and public sector. Okay, there are companies owned by private sector or owned by public sector. Public sector means owned by government. Okay, that is a separate discussion that you will have in one of the topics about public sector companies, etc. All I wanted to clarify was, here we don't mean public sector companies. Here I mean the government either at central level or state level or union territories, etc. What are their roles? Actually, rather than role, we should talk in terms of roles. One, the government purchases different types of goods and services. I know this sounds a little weird to many of you, but government is actually a very important purchaser of goods and services. I can give you an example. Just like you and me purchase stationery, furnitures, cars for our personal use, we are all part of household, that you have understood by now. So just like as a household member we purchase say stationery or furnitures, etc., the government departments also do the same thing. There will be stationery, furniture and cars and other things bought by the government department also. Like any central or state government department will also buy goods and services. What am I trying to indicate? Government is having a little bit of household also, a little bit of firms also and other things also. Government is one of the most unique sectors in a macroeconomy, and that you will realize when you do the other topics as well. So government, one role is that they buy goods and services. Another role is that they provide, government provides certain services. The most common example can be public administration. The service in which you are aspiring to help the government, okay, is this. Okay, so the exam that you are writing is to make you contribute to the public administration services of the government. There can be other services also, defense, law and order. Okay, these are unique services which are provided by government only. You will not see any general services here, it will be unique. Public administration or law and order, defense. You will say, but isn't that firms are doing? Well, firms are doing it, but generally when firms do it, they appear in a market economy manner. Okay, the firms will generally sell you a good or service, mainly a service, and take a price for that. Okay, like you are paying fees for consuming a service of education here. When government provides service, that is not like a market economy. Okay, you will not see government charging for them, ideally. Okay, so when you go to a police station to report a complaint, ideally there shouldn't be a charge that you pay for it. Okay, if you pay, that is called corruption. Okay, so that is not a market economy based thing over here. So what is the idea here? Government provides these services either free of cost or at minimal charges. Okay, sometimes even if there are charges, the charges are like a token. The major part of those services are actually provided without any cost, and that is what makes the services unique. And none other than government can provide it. Government is very unique in this case. Okay, we'll talk more about its connection. The third role of the government can be welfare role. Although too much in debate in recent times, but I consider this as a very important role of government. Under welfare role, government provides subsidies and contribute to infrastructure development, etc. So it provides subsidies and infrastructure. Subsidies will do in class, don't worry. Right now, if you want to understand, I can tell you that subsidies are like discounts given by government. Okay, on different goods and services, government gives us discount, like on education, food grains. Okay, that is where government is in welfare role. Sometimes government also builds infrastructure for us, mainly rural parts of the economy, like rural road, okay, or rural electricity. It can be in urban also, but more in rural. So whenever government is building roads or providing electricity or say building bridges and so on, that is where again government is in welfare role, a very important role. One common link in 1, 2, 3 is, in all these cases government is spending money. Okay, so there must be something where it is getting money from. That is where comes the fourth role, that government levies and collects taxes, correct. government levies and collects taxes. Levies means, the word levying of tax means government decides who will pay, what type of tax and what amount of tax. Okay, levies means what will be the nature of tax, etc. and then government also collects it. This is the main revenue source for the government. Well, I'm not going into detail because very soon when you have a topic on fiscal policy, you will do more on taxes types, who collects it and so on. So being the first class, I'll also hint that what topics you are going to have very soon. Like one of them will be definitely on taxation, one will be on inflation. Okay, that is all connected somewhere or the other to the broader thing. Okay, let's wind up with the fourth and the last sector. So three of them we have done. The households, the firms, the government, and the fourth one is financial sector. Financial sector acts as an intermediary between surplus funds sectors and deficit fund sectors. Surplus fund sector here means, as the name surplus indicates, those sectors who are having more money than they need right now. Okay, and who do you think mainly comes on this side from what we have talked about? The households. Households are the most common surplus fund sectors. The proof of that is we keep our money in savings account in the bank. So here bank is acting like a part of financial sector. When I keep my savings account with the bank, bank is a part of financial sector and I am a surplus fund sector. I am a household who has kept the savings with the bank. What will then bank do with that saving? They will collect it in order to give loans to the deficit fund sectors, where you can think of firms, government, households can also, okay, let me clarify that. Actually, on both sides, all three can come. Okay, on both sides, all three can come. Example that I am giving is the main example. So, households are mostly on surplus side, even if firms can be. Okay, about government I will talk later, but generally it is household or the firms. On deficit side, we may have firms, government, even household, but households are typically at the end. Okay, let's clarify this in this manner. Whoever is on surplus side, they are actually the contributing to savings, and whoever is on the deficit side, they are contributing to borrowings. Okay, we'll keep on talking about it, but here itself, let's talk about the ranking in terms of savings and borrowings. When we talk of savings, okay, in savings, the top rank will be households. I'm talking about Indian economy, but generally it is true for other economies also. In savings on the top we have households, then firms, and then government. Government mostly is not able to save because, as we saw on the last page, they have too many things to spend upon. So didn't you notice that government has too many things to spend upon? So it is rarely a saving contributor. Savings are mainly contributed by households, then firms, and then the government. On borrowings we have firms on top, and you will realize that why as we go further, then government, and then households. This is the ranking in terms of importance. Okay, I hope you got it. So what we are understanding so far is all three can save and borrow, but their rankings are different. Savings are mostly done by household, then firms, then government. Borrowings are mostly done by firms, then government, then households. All three can save or borrow, and the intermediary in meeting what leads to meeting between saving and borrowing is our financial sector, like banks. Okay, more on this when we do money banking topic. Okay, when we do money banking topic, there will be detailed interpretation of financial sector. Here I just wanted to give you a little idea that what financial sector is about. Okay, hold on, I'll come to the fourth sector. I got the point. I will come to that. So let me clarify. When I was telling these sectors, 4 sectors here, I was talking about domestic economy. I have not yet gone international. I'll come to that also, but step by step. Okay. Let's go into one important concept. I think before we end this class, at least this part should be completely done. I'm talking about circular flow. There is a concept of circular flow in economics, or formally you can call it circular flow of income and expenditure. If you want to read on it, you can see macroeconomics chapter. First chapter of macro book talks about circular flow, but here we are doing it in a simpler manner. So try to understand it first here. Circular flow can be defined as, or circular flow reflects interrelationships between different economic sectors. We just talked about 4 important economic sectors. Circular flow is reflecting how they are interrelated, how the households, firms, government, etc. are interrelated. Now, in order to keep it easier, we generally start with circular flow in 2 sectors only. Okay, because if I put all the sectors at one point, you will be confused. That is why we often begin with circular flow in 2 sectors, where the 2 sectors are the firms and the households. Basically, any economy is incomplete or impossible without at least these 2 sectors. We cannot talk about an economy without firms and household. Hypothetically, we can still talk about an economy without government. Okay, although it's not very practical nowadays, but it is absolutely impossible to think of an economy without firms and household. So what we are going to do now, we are going to look into actual link between firms and household, the actual flow through a kind of a flow chart. So let's start with that. Do one thing, draw 2 boxes at some distance. Okay, these 2 boxes are representing the 2 sectors that we have just talked about. Let's keep on one side the firms, on the other the households. And then we are trying to look into what is circular flow looking like. Circular flow is like talking about some flow from one sector to the other and then the return back. That is why the name circular. Don't worry, I'll give you examples. What you should mainly focus here is on the direction of arrow. Okay, that will keep on telling you what is moving from one point to the other and reverse coming in. So when I start my discussion, I talk about an arrow going from the firms moving to the households, which I will name as final goods and services. Goods and services you already know. Why did I use the word final? That I'll explain you more in the coming class. Right now just write it. You can say it this way. The moment a company is selling its goods or services to the household, it has to be final. If it is not final, we call it intermediate goods, and that discussion is for the next class. The final, intermediate goods, the difference, the importance, leave it here. Just think of this way. Firms produce final goods and services, sell it to the household. For example, let's say there is a car making company that will produce the cars and will sell those cars to the households. But how households are contributing in this final goods and production, that is given as the reverse flow. Okay, households contribute through what we call in economics factors of production, which I will do in more detail further. Let's see if today only we'll be able to do. There are factors of production contributed by the households, or you can also call it factor inputs, one and the same thing. Factors of production, factor inputs. One example I'll take here, more I'll tell you later. Like households will contribute labor input to the companies. So labor is one of the common example of factor of production. It's very realistic. Don't you think for producing these cars, which I was taking in my example, we need laborers to work in the car making factory? Okay, where are these coming from? From the households. Unless households contribute labor input, firms cannot provide final goods and services. That is the idea of circular flow. Okay, circular flow is telling that no one is superior or inferior. They are interconnected, they are interdependent. Households depend on firms for final goods and services, but then firms also depend on households for the factors of production. Okay, one circular flow we have done, but we'll do one more. Actually, the basic difference will be between the two will be, in this circular flow, I did not talk about prices. Okay, in economics, whenever we do not talk about prices, etc., we are calling it real flows. Okay, so this flow can be an example of real flow or real flows. Real in economics generally mean something where we are either not talking about prices or we are trying to remove the role of prices. Okay, again, I'll discuss that in coming class in detail. When I start with national income, I will talk about real and nominal national income. I think that is for the next class. Right now, just understand, real flows mean the flow without price. There is no price that we are talking about. We just talked about real goods and services, the real factors of production. But in economics, generally prices do play the role. Okay, we cannot be hypothetical here. The moment we talk of price, we talk about a nominal flow. The term nominal and real are very often used in economics. So what will be the nominal flow for the same real? Focus here. Again, we'll have two flows going from first firms to the households. I begin now here. And then back. I'll come back to that later. Let's talk about this first. What is the nominal flow going from the firms to the households? You can call it factor payments. Write it. I'll explain that also. Don't worry. You can call it factor payments or factor cost or factor income. They are all same. Don't get confused. And keep all of them in mind. You never know in which discussion which term is being used. Okay, you can call it by either of the name, doesn't matter. Factor payments, factor cost or factor income. Factor payment or cost is a term used from the firm's perspective. Let's understand now what is a factor payment. Factor payment means payments for factors of production. As simple, hidden in the name itself. The payments for factors of production made by the firms to the households. The payments for factors of production made by the firms to the household, we call it factor payments. You can also call it factor cost. Reason, it's a part of production cost for the producer. When the firms are producing something, they have a cost of production. The major or at least one part of cost of production is what they pay to their factors. Like for labor, they have to pay wages. Wages can be an example of factor payment or factor cost, whatever you call the same thing, or even factor income. And why did I write factor income? Because for household it is income. Same thing which is cost for the company is income for the household. So the wages that we earn, as a household we will call it earning, but our employer will call it a part of cost. How does it matter? Households earn factor income and then they use this income to buy these goods and services. So the other nominal flow moves from household and goes to the firms. Now we are doing nominal flow in the exterior part. There is another nominal flow moving from households to the firms. We formally call it private final consumption expenditure. NCERT book just calls it consumption expenditure. It's okay. In many common discussions, we just call it consumption expenditure also. That's not a big issue. But a more formal name is private final consumption expenditure. I will formally define that in the next class, but a broader idea I'll give you here also. Private final consumption expenditure basically means whatever households are spending on purchasing final goods and services. Whatever households are spending on the final goods and services, we call it private final consumption expenditure. I'll do it again, so don't worry, just get the basic idea at least here. And this completes our two-sector circular flow. A question from you. Households are getting factor income and then spending it on final consumption expenditure. Which is higher in general if I think of all households together? If I take all households together, which is higher, income or expenditure? It is income. And I gave you that hint already on the last page. Households are top ranker in savings. How can households be top ranker? Only when they earn more than they spend. Okay, I know from your perspective it may be opposite. Okay, you will generally say my pocket money is not enough to what I spend. But then don't forget your source is somewhere else. Okay, that source will typically have still factor income higher than expenditure. Okay, that doesn't mean you go and look into the entire source, but just telling you that households generally have more factor income, generally. I know that there are many households whose income is less than expenditure. Okay, but then we are talking about the less privileged ones, the low income, the poor households. Still, if you keep all the households as the sum, the factor income exceeds the consumption expenditure. That is the reason why households were on the top when it comes to savings. In fact, I can also give you a basic meaning of household savings with this. Household savings are equal to factor income minus private final consumption expenditure. Household savings can be given as the difference between factor income and private final consumption expenditure, PFCE. PFC is private final consumption expenditure. Okay, so that is just to give you an idea. Okay, one more thing to clarify. So far when we are doing circular flow, we are again thinking of domestic economy only, not external sector. That also I will do. Okay, one by one, I will bring the external sector also, or even the role of government, etc. We have not yet talked about it. But if you understand even the two-sector circular flow, it is immensely important. And you will see that in my coming classes, that how this basic circular flow is so much helpful in our discussion. I think before we wind up for today, I think we have enough time for that. We can at least do the factors of production and factor payments in some more detail. Okay, then I'll take all the questions. Let me finish this part first and then why firms exist? Okay, I expected that question. That is why I clarified. We have not done the entire circular flow. The question is asking that if the factor income is more than expenditure, how will firms sustain? Well, my answer would be that is why I told you that I didn't do the entire circular flow. It is possible that the firms are also selling their goods to government from where they make income. It is also possible that the firms are not able to have enough income to produce and then they borrow from banks. It is also possible that they export their product and get income from there. Okay, these possibilities are there, but I thought one by one. Okay, that is the reason why we started with the two sectors. Exactly, the factor income is needed for sustainability of the household, etc. It is not all about household and firms only, but households and firms are the fundamental sectors in the economy. Whatever comes after in the government or other things, they come after it. Okay, we cannot have the government or financial sector without them. Okay, we'll do that also, but before that, I think I should tell you about 4 types of factors of production. It is in continuation with our circular flow discussion only. In circular flow, we talked about factors of production. Now I'm going to tell you what are the 4 important types of factors of production and accordingly 4 important types of factor payments. Although I gave you one example, there are 3 more examples that I'll be talking about. So, many of you would be knowing about these 4 types. These are called land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. The 4 types of factors of production are land, labor, capital and entrepreneurship. Let's take them one by one. Although they are very easy, but still few things may be confusing. Like when I say land as a factor of production, I actually mean natural resource inputs to production. Factors of production are all inputs to production. From circular flow itself, we learned that the factors of productions are inputs to production which firms need for producing goods and services. But these inputs can come from various types. One type is natural resource. All the natural resource inputs are categorized under land. So the unique thing that you should learn here is land is not just the plot of land. That is also there. That is also natural resource. Commonly by land we mean the plot of land. That is also natural resource. But you can also add other natural resources there like water, minerals, forestry, okay, sunlight for solar energy. Okay, these are all actually a subset of land only in this case. Whatever is the input to production given by nature, it can be land, it can be water, forestry, or even as basic as sunlight in some cases, you can put it under the land part. So I'm sure for many of you it was a new thing that we typically don't just talk about land here. Labor is the easiest one. Labor is human resource inputs to production. Human resource inputs mean whenever a human being contribute to production. Okay, whenever a human being is contributing to production, and that can be both skilled, unskilled labor. Okay, so within this labor I'm thinking of say a construction worker also and a software engineer also. Okay, even if their physical labor may be different, Both of them are contributing some human resource input to production. Coming to capital. Capital refers to long-term, man-made inputs to production. So capital is also input, but we categorize it through two ways. It is long-term and man-made. Let's understand why this is important. Land is also generally long-term. Okay, first of all, what do we mean by long-term? Since this is common in economics, I should make it clear. In economics, almost in every topic you will see a discussion on short-term versus long-term. We are very particular about that in economics, short-term, long-term. Short-term generally refers to a period within 1 year. Okay, whenever in economics we are talking about a time period within 1 year, we call it short-term. Beyond 1 year, long-term. Okay, examples, don't worry, you will get it in every topic. Like very soon when you do fiscal policy, you will see government may have a short-term revenue, a long-term revenue, a short-term expenditure, a long-term. Leave it. Here we are doing as a factor of production. So, long-term factors of production means what? Something which I can use for years as a producer. It's not exhausting within the year, I'm using it for many years, which is land also. Generally, the natural resources are also very long-term. Capital is also long-term. Then what differentiates them? One is natural, the other is man-made. That's why we clearly wrote man-made. The basic difference between land and capital is, although both are often longer term, one is natural, the other is man-made. Like in capital, you can think of examples like machineries, factories. Okay, capital generally means machineries, factories, buildings. And yes, there are some more unique examples. The example that I am giving so far are of physical capital. Okay, physical capital can be, say, buildings, machineries, factories. Then we have human capital. Okay, the skill sets or skill development, etc. Although both are important, in our basic discussion, I will think of capital mainly as physical capital. In the basic economics discussion, capital is physical capital, while I completely know that human capital is equally or even more important in a modern economy. Like skill development, etc. are also very, very important aspect of capital. And that is also long-term and man-made, by the way. Okay, if you learn a skill, that is going to help you for a very long time, and this is actually a deliberate attempt by you. It didn't come from nature or something that you got that. Okay, last one, entrepreneurship. This is risk-taking ability. The literal meaning of entrepreneurship is risk-taking ability. Okay, risk-taking is very unique factor because most of the other factors are physically seen to us. Land, labor, even capital generally, these are tangible. We can see them. But you cannot see someone taking risk as such. How do we know then this is a factor? If we can't see, how do we know risk taking is a factor? Let's take an example. Suppose that there is a car making company which is launching a new car in the market. Clearly for launching that new car, it will need land, labor, capital also, mainly labor and capital. Okay, but land may also be needed. But do you think just land, labor, capital will mean that the car will be launched successfully? Forget about it. There is someone who is taking risk in all this. Someone who would have thought for the first time that what model of car with what basic characteristic features will be brought in the market. What is the consumer's expectations about the cars, etc. These things are the decisions which the risk taker does. So in this example, the entrepreneurship example is launching a new product. Entrepreneurship here is about launching a new product, although in a broader meaning, Entrepreneurship may even mean launching a new business, a new enterprise. After all, we call a person entrepreneur when he or she starts their own enterprise or business. Okay, that is a bigger risk. Do you see that? If a car making company, in that some employees take the decision on launching a new car, launching an entire business is a bigger risk. And that is why the term entrepreneur is used for those who start their own startup, the new businesses, etc. They are taking entire risk related to that enterprise. So, 4 factors done. Quickly on factor payments also. So, 4 factors each have 1 factor payment also. For land, it is rent. For land, the factor payment is called rent. For labor, wages. For capital, interest. And for entrepreneurship, profits. Now, out of this, I think first 2 are easier. I'll quickly tell and leave it. Rent for land, very common. Okay, we see that, say, farmers who are not having their own land, they operate on others' land and pay a rent. And similarly, many industries do that. Many industries take land on rent also for their production. Wages for labor, again, so obvious. When we work for an organization, provide our labor input, in return we get wages. Well, wages and salaries are more or less the same thing, except that the word salary is slightly more modern and used for skilled labor. The term wages are kind of more traditional term, mostly for unskilled or less skilled, but don't get confused on that part. Sometimes we even call it wages and salaries. Okay, these 2 are more unique. Okay, let's do the entrepreneurship part first, and then I'll come to the capital. Entrepreneurs get profit in return. How can we say that? Okay, I can give you a couple of examples, like who is deciding on these risk-taking decisions, like launching a new product? The chief level managerial officers in the company, like CEO of a company, managing director of a company. They are the ones who decide on which new product will be launched, etc. But don't you also know that then generally they take home a much higher money or remuneration than a common labor? Okay, you can think of any company and you will see that the remuneration given to CEO may be even 1,000 times the average wages of the labor in the same company. What explains that huge difference between remuneration to labor and this? The factor is that they are also taking risk. They are getting a part of profits of the company also in remuneration. There is another way to remember it. Either you can remember it through higher remuneration given to the CEO, etc., or you can remember it as many managerial employees are also shareholders in their company. Okay, that is a very common thing nowadays, that those who are the top level employees in a company, they are also major shareholders in the company. By being shareholder, they automatically get a part of profit that a company makes, dividend. Okay, the part of profit which we call dividend, they automatically get it. Take it anyway, that is how we say profit is a return for entrepreneurship. Let's do this one, capital a return for interest. Although not difficult, but this link is slightly long term. So let me write it. What we are discussing here is that capital is often a lumpy factor. By lumpy, what we mean? Something which is not divisible. Something which you cannot divide it in smaller units or not. Okay, I can give you example. Like, suppose that I am starting a new business and I am not sure whether I will succeed. So I will not hire 100 laborers at the same time. I may start with hiring 5 laborers maybe. Getting it? So labor is what is divisible. I can decide whether I should hire 1 or 2 or 3 laborers. But can I do the same thing with a factory or machine? No. I cannot say, okay, let's start with half a machine now. Okay, that is impossible. That sounds funny by its wording only. No company can start with half a machine or 1/4 of a factory. Okay, either they will buy a machine or not buy a machine. That is what we call a lumpy factor, something which is not often divisible. Why this is important? Being lumpy in nature, they are often costlier. Capital is often a costlier factor of production. Therefore, firms need loans from banks to buy capital. Okay, before I go further, remember what did I tell you when I did the saving borrowing ranking? I said in borrowing on the top we have firms. Reason I have written it now. Okay, if you were thinking why firms are the main borrower in any country, not just India, the reason is mainly this. Because the firms are the main purchasers of capital, and for purchasing capital they need loans, they need borrowings from the banks. Okay, going further, where will these loans come from? Okay, how will the bank give these loans? These loans are sourced from the household savings. Actually, savings can come from anyone. In brackets, you can say mainly households. The loans are coming through the savings, which are mainly done by households. And what is the return that is given to the savings? It is interest. That is why we say that interest is the return on capital. So this story was slightly longer one. Okay, but I thought I'll tell you why capital return is interest, because often a new person in economics is confused that what is capital, what is interest. They are completely different. This is the link. So although I have written, I'll repeat again. Capital is often very expensive or among the expensive factor because of the very nature that they are lumpy. They cannot be divided. So bank loans etc. are needed. And loans cannot be given unless the household save, for which they get interest. So this completes our 4 factors of production as well as the 4 types of factor payments that I wanted to discuss with you. Okay. 2 minutes more, because what we are doing is just to conclude it. Okay, I know it, I'm crossing my timeline, but believe me, if we save some time, it will be helpful. Just one thing. A difference between closed and open economy. And that is where I'll be stopping for today. Closed economy means economy where only domestic sectors interact with each other. An economy where only domestic sectors interact with each other, we call it a closed economy. Only domestic sectors mean domestic households, firms, government, financial sector, etc. The 4 main sectors that we did. So if you think of India, for example, and consider that I am telling India is a closed economy, which is very unrealistic. Just for example, if I tell you that India is a closed economy, then I mean that Indian households are, say, buying goods only from Indian firms, and the link is only with the Indian government or the Indian banks or share markets, etc. There is nothing outside India that we are talking of, then it is a closed economy. It's highly unrealistic concept, and definitely India is not a closed economy. I'm not entering into that debate here. I can say that India is not a closed economy. Okay, one more myth I should like to kind of break here. Some textbook write that before 91 India was closed and then after 91 it became open. No, that's a wrong statement. At most you can say before 91 we were less open economy, and after 91 we became more open economy. India was never a closed economy, even if you go till the ancient history of India by that matter. Forget about the last few centuries or decades. I can talk about many, many centuries ago. We have been never a closed economy. Leave it. That is little debatable, but fine. India is clearly not closed economy now. Okay, we are an open economy. So nowadays we do closed economy only to understand open. The counter, the opposite of it. Open economy means economy where the domestic sectors, the economy where domestic sectors also interact with external sector. So we are adding a fifth sector in our list now. So far we did 4 of them. We are in the 5th one, the external sector. External sector means all non-domestic sectors like if you are thinking of India, then you can say any non-Indian company or household or government, etc. So any type of non-domestic sectors, be it household, firms, etc. I'm not writing everything. To give you a quick example of all this, like a household living in Indonesia is a part of external sector for me. Or a company producing steel in Japan is external sector for me. Or government of US or a bank in London. Okay, can you see? You can have lakhs of example in this manner of the non-domestic sectors. Plus international organizations. International organizations are always part of external sector for any country. Under this you can think of IMF, World Bank, WTO, etc. The list can be longer, but common examples are IMF, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, WTO, and so on and so forth. That is a part of external sector for all the countries. And why did I write also here was, open economy is automatically including the features of closed. Okay, when I wrote also, I meant that whatever we did in closed economy is here also. Like Indian households interacting with Indian companies, etc. That is happening here. Plus, they also interact with external sector. Generally, that interaction starts with concepts like exports, imports, but actually there are many more things. Exports, imports, I hope most of you know already. Export is something like produced by an Indian firm but sold to external sector. Some good, if it is produced by Indian company and sold to external sector, that's export. Import is opposite. Something produced in external sector and bought by us. Okay. But there are many more things actually here. Foreign investment, foreign loans. There is a full topic you will have on open economy, and a very important topic. Some other faculty member will soon take up an entire topic on open economy. Why then I am doing here with you? Because my main goal was to tell you that even when I will do national income with you, you should always keep in the back of your mind that India is an open economy. It matters. Okay, while doing national income also, just keeping at the back of your mind that India is an open economy is very, very important. Okay, so more on this when we begin the next class. That's it for today. And I think you should mainly revise the class notes first. If you get more questions, we'll take it in the coming class. Raw material, if it is in the form of natural resource, it is land. If it is in the form of manufactured one, it will be intermediate good. That will come later. It will not be a factor of production. Non-domestic means which is not within our domestic territory. Okay, one by one. Okay, we are coming to some of the explanations. Thank you so much.